Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of my Kenshi the General's Quest series. It's actually the middle of the day for me, which means I'm going to be a bit more pumped up in this one, so I might try and show a bit more emotion in my Rings of the episode. So, we return to our 3 protagonists. Circuit is still researching. Logan is, I believe he's still training off in the tower. No, actually, Logan's still guarding Molly in the thing. Anywho. Logan's skill inside is incredibly bad. Like, holy crap, what? Why do you got, like, negative... let's see here. Weapon indoors and equipment. What in your equipment is causing you to be bad? Crossbows, combat speed, dexterity, martial arts. Wait, so you're decent... Gosh darn it. Molly thanks Logan for guarding her as she slept, and they both walked off together to gather more materials to further their cause.
Hello.
Excuse me, everyone. I'm having a bit of technical difficulties right now, so... I'm gonna pause the recording here for a second. And we're back. Sorry, that was like a 30-minute break, but you ain't gonna see none of it. It's gonna seem like a transition. Yeah. Honestly, I need your guys' thoughts on things. Do you guys want me to basically, like, pause the thing to just skip through scenes of just manual labor, or do you want me to continue to try and put a narrative over their labor? Basically comment what you think below, and I'll adjust my recordings accordingly. But for now, I'm just going to keep with the old and continue my monologuing. Epiloguing? No, this is... Circuit finished his work and went down to help Molly and Logan with the copper. Logan was sent once more to deal with iron recovery. The black plateaus in the distance and the great mountain beyond were the only landmarks visible to Molly. And the far off, this whole wasteland seemed truly desolate. Lonely, perhaps. Maybe it was not so. Maybe it was just fate. Molly wondered to herself, was it truly worth it to join this band? It was interesting, and the most excitement she's ever experienced, but it's also menial and kind of depressing. She pondered this. Logan felt as though he had found a place where he could find a bite to eat at least. That's all he could ask for. a separate note, I actually forgot what the frick those things are called, so no, they're out of rent. Wait. Come on, just press. Ah, Garu. Yes. A roving band of Garu passed by them as they work. Due to their lack of movement, the Garu were not startled, and another scuffle did not begin. As the sun set on the day, Circuit came into an idea. They would go down to the nearby town of Squin and recruit themselves more compatriots to aid in their quest. But they would still need wealth for that task. That was something they did not have in abundance. The night shone out with many noises. Yet the moon looked beautiful. Circuit wondered if that planet itself had oceans and more landmass than Kenshi could ever dream of. Why stay here? Why were we here? If technology had advanced so much as to create beings like himself, how had they not traveled? How had they not left? A worrying question indeed, but one that would have to be pondered at a later date. There are much worse places than the border zone. Circuit thought to some of the worst places in the world. The swamps around Shock, with their blood spiders, which would rip travelers limb from limb in an instant. He thought of the Black Desert, where his own kind would roam. Many a sentient skeleton has been put to his end by the surrounding devices. Some would call them sentient, but they were indeed not. They were brutal beings, hell-bent on the destruction of many. The sun rose once more as these thoughts faded from Circuit's mind. I guess beauty was the reason why they stayed. Maybe. Strange to have not seen any hungry bandits passing through here recently. Perhaps there is a shortage of them after the many events which had transpired. What was that? Something strange. It seemed to be nothing, and so he ignored it. This next adventure, Circuit surmised, they would all take together, so as to protect each other if they encountered undesirables. Thankfully, they had all recovered from their last endeavor, but it was still weighing on Circuit's mind. A traveler passed by. A shinobi ninja. A friendly sort. He hoped that one day his labors with them would prove themselves useful. But they continued to work tirelessly, post haste. Circuit wondered to himself how such a mass of hungry bandits came to be. If they were to rob everyone for food, they wouldn't even be able to feed themselves. It would take an astronomical amount of lives to feed just their small band. Why would they collaborate in the first place? Were the leaders the only ones who benefited? If that were true, it would be more of a scam than actual banditry. The scammers themselves getting scammed. An interesting dilemma. And definitely not one Circuit would surmise is common. It seemed as though a solitary bandit had shown up at the bottom of a hill, demanding our food. He was ignored, for he was but one. Circuit, angered by this insolence, walked over to speak to the man itself. He, Circuit, annoyed by this small one, walked over to where he was located, presumably to beat the shit out of him. He was over encumbered, so it would take him a while to make it over there, but he would eventually accomplish this goal in due time. Strange. This one had apparently gotten itself stuck. Well, apparently it was impossible to attack this one, so he just kind of left this strange bandit where he stood. How he'd gotten up there in the first place, Circuit cannot state, but he had been there, and so he would stay there. For Circuit had no true reason to meddle with him. His slight annoyance would have to be ignored for now. While Circuit's back was turned, apparently Logan was beaten senseless. You know what, that makes a lot of sense, honestly. Like, that was kind of stupid of me to turn my back on bandits, but like, Circuit was pissed. Molly was getting the crap beaten out of her. So was Circuit, honestly. It was just not the best battle they'd ever fought. Being outnumbered is not the way to go. Circuit himself was left alone to fight these bandits. Apparently they had been hiding on a ridge nearby, watching their leader be stuck for some reason. Honestly, Circuit was not very confident that this battle would be won, but was interested in how this battle had even come to be. If he was hit in the chest much more, he would fall unconscious. They had somehow not robbed Logan, who had the most food out of all of them. That is honestly very confusing, but thus ended the strangest encounter of Circuit's life. Molly was incredibly wounded. Logan less so, but still in a concerning state. Apparently one of the bandits chose to duel an escaped servant. A poor choice, apparently. as a servant beat him senselessly. It seems that Circuit would have to carry both of them back into the town. The plans would have to be delayed once more. It would be days before either of them came back to consciousness. This angered Circuit, but he couldn't really change this at all. This result was set in stone. Circuit surmised that while they were both unconscious, he would have to continue their mission and accomplish their goal. He would go out to the Shek town nearby to gain a member or two for their party. Piles of copper lay nearby where both of them had began their combat. Thankfully, Circuit had at least come conscious afterwards. He gave Molly back what she had gained. And he took his gains as well. He then carried Logan back to town first. A random shinobi passed by. It would have been more useful to have had him by their side earlier, but Circuit surmised it worth the money to pay to put his friend Logan into bed. Before he quickly passed out of the shop, he sold what he had. And he ran out to pick up Molly. Logan had apparently become conscious but was still heavily injured. Circuit began to trade with his compatriots. One of his shinobi brethren sat in the bar. Circuit spoke little word with him, though, for the shinobi, while brothers in arms, were not the talkative sort. That much had been learned. After trading with the bartender one more time, Circuit began his journey to Squin alone, as his compatriots healed. His journey continued to Squin. The moon shining dimly upon him. Logan again seemed to be normal, and thus he came out of his bed to see Molly beside her, him bloodied but alive. They would have to pay for the bloodied sheets, but at least they had been able to sleep off most of the damage. So he did not see Circuit, however, and wondered where he'd gone off to. He looked out off of the roof of the building and saw where the trail of feet went. He cursed to himself as he realized his friend had gone on without them. He respected his decision, but still did not agree with it. Soka couldn't see much, but what he could see did not bode well. Bone dogs in the distance, the occasional guru. Garo? Okay, out of monologue voice for a second. I don't even know how to pronounce those things' name. I'll call them Garo or Guru or good. I think I'm just gonna call them creatures. Anywho, back into my monologuing voice. As Soka continued on his journey to Squin, every single step seemed to be a mile away from his friends, but he did not wish to risk them. A bright pink star shone out, an omen perhaps. Whatever it was didn't seem to exactly bode in Circuit's favor, for he had been very distrusting of things such as this. The howling of bone dogs continued throughout the night. Thankfully, those creatures could not actually consume his remains. He would just be left there for scrappers and techies from the north instead. Of course, he hadn't met these peoples in ages. The world itself seemed to have moved much faster than he did after his encounter with near death. As Circuit stood there, running, not much really bode horrible for him. He seemed to be going around Squint for some reason, though, after he looked up from his map, which was strange, to be sure, but thankfully he had noticed when he did, or he might have completely overtaken the town. His footsteps echoed in the night. The guards received little mention of him. Their lights shone upon him as he ran up. Distrustful, maybe. Apparently. He surmised that apparently I was not unworthy of entering this city. For some reason the door had been closed behind me. Strange, but not unexpected entirely. There's a random Shek warrior, a pacifier, a drifter named Rain the Giant. This man said he would offer services for 7,500 cats. This much wealth could be accrued, but it also could be stolen quite easily by a skilled thief. Circuit surmised that this was either a good or bad idea entirely. But he would go through with it nonetheless. It seemed that this giant would have skills in combat, which could heavily suit the needs that now presented themselves to Circuit. The guard could not see him now. He seemed to be in a safe position to pick this lock. Of course, the darkness would only harbor him for so long, and the night would soon end. If he were to accomplish this, though, he could gain some sort of prize. Time seemed to speed up as he fidgeted with the lock more and more, getting more worried by the second. The Shek had not turned around yet, but for how long would that last? He'd accomplished his goal. He looked inside and saw a disappointing sight. He then walked out as if nothing had ever happened. Apparently he had almost stolen fish. Circuit rethought his own decisions. Before attempting to surmise where to go next. What if? He was almost discovered by a guard, but he narrowly saw them around the corner. He ran into the police office and went up to a more secluded chamber. He sensed no others approaching, and crept slowly and carefully up a floor. There apparently seemed to be no prisoners at the moment. He hoped this would be true by the morning. Apparently, he'd also chosen a second foolhardy target, for there was nothing of worth in here either. He didn't really have anything valuable on himself, but he did notice something. Nearby store's guard had just gone off. If he were to capitalize on this slight opening in the shift, he could perhaps score himself something precious from this store. But then he turned around and circuit went off again. And thus the sun rose, ruining his initial plans. But the opening of shops would open a much more daring robbery. He could attempt to steal something very valuable from the trade master. For all of their items were usually precious or valuable in one way or another. Circuit continued to wait. Logan gave Molly some food while they waited for Circuit Breaker's return. Apparently the shops didn't open until late. Logan felt a sudden urge to join his friend, but then he turned around and realized that he could not leave with goodwill Molly alone. And thus, if this will load, he decided to stay with Molly and to guard her as he had been guarded by his friend in the past. And thus ends episode 7 of my Kenshi the General's Quest. Honestly, I should have just been saving it as this the whole time. Until next time, where we see if Circuit will be able to gain enough wealth via stealing to buy the giant, or if he shall not. We shall see you all next time. Have a good one, y'all. And if you know any other people who like Kenshi, maybe get them to watch this stuff. I really enjoy making it. If you have any suggestions, I'm totally up for it. Always willing to improve. Anywho, sayonara.